Alrighty, what's going on, Macro Perspective peeps? I am so excited. Marcos and I have an amazing guest today. First and foremost, we have Kayla Barrow on. And Kayla, I'm going to give you guys a quick short snippet story. Got to meet her at High Rocks. She knows Blake Mistretta, who we've had on as a previous guest in High Rocks, talking about his professional racing and all that. But I got to see one of his athletes and her partner, Aisha, crush it in their division, basically getting number 2 and then top 10 overall. Was amazing seeing them kill it. And I remember hearing a comment after getting to meet her. She's like, oh, those Blake's classes are harder than this whole thing. And I was like, oh, snaps. And it kind of shows you the amount of preparation that Kayla put in. And the reason I wanted to get Kayla on the pod as well, and Marcos and I were really delighted to bring her on, is obviously we want to talk about health and wellness, but Kayla is a high performer in many spaces and has her own business and has all these things. And I think the listeners can take from her some practical things and just her story. And, it'd be really cool to get her on. But Kayla, about you. Do you have a quick little elevator pitch about you, how you got into the health and wellness world, what you're doing in business today, and what's exciting for you nowadays?
Yeah, sure. Also, thank you for the great intro. Maybe I'll share about that later on how I had no motivation to do high rocks at all. Aisha was the person who got me to do it. It's a really funny story, but it ended up totally working out. But for those who don't know me, so I'm a health broker, and in short, what I do is I teach people how to sell medical grade holistic products online. Very in the health and wellness space. Fitness is a passion of mine now. Everybody's got a story, and that's why I always love asking people what even gets them into health and fitness to begin with. I feel like it's so different for a lot of people, but in most cases in my industry, what I've experienced, and same story for myself, is I really had to get sick before I started to care about my health. I definitely did not grow up into a healthy lifestyle. Love my parents. They're super healthy now, but definitely grew up in a time of, Lunchables and Oreos and all the good things. And I always had a lot of gut issues, and everyone just said it's your diet. So I changed my diet, started working out, nutritionist, detox doctor, you name it. Over a string of things, they just could not figure out what was going on. They're like, oh, you have acid reflux or you have GI or something. So I took medication without really knowing for 12 years, and finally got to a point where I'm like, you guys, I work out, I eat well, I'm doing all the things, and I'm still getting bloated by 1 p.m. and feeling super lethargic. And this is me, someone who really is intentional about their health. So I can't imagine somebody who is just not. And over a course of things, they found out that it's GERD. Do you guys know what GERD is?
Yeah, it's reflux.
Yes. It is a fancy way of saying you have super high acid reflux. It took me a very long time to get an answer on that.
Question. I have a question for you, though. Sorry to cut you off.
Asked me.
Do you happen to know that this is due to high or low stomach acid?
That's a great question. I don't know. This was my experience. I had to ask for the endoscopy after going to an urgent care for 3 months. It was the first time I had ever asked my doctor something. I think that's why I love collaborating with people like you who are big advocates on like ask questions, be proactive on your health. Preventative is always better, but it just isn't always the case. So I was going in doing whatever my doctor said, no questions asked. Finally got to a breaking point of doing all the things and nothing was working. I'm like, you guys, let's do an endoscopy, which how weird is that you have to ask your doctor to do that? And then it came back and they literally so simple, like, oh yeah, you have GERD. I had no clue what that was. They gave me 2 prescriptions to take. They said I'll have to take it for the rest of my life. And they gave me a stack of paper, which had a list of foods that I couldn't eat. And that was it. That was the only feedback I got. So that just really led me down a rabbit hole of looking into just something else. So I didn't have to be on medication the whole time.
And this all was 12 years ago with the origin story of this, or this is all relatively recent?
So this was something that I dealt with from the age of 16. I think I was starting to be aware of it until, let's see, I found the solution 7 years ago and I'm 36 now. So it was a really long time.
13 years. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, okay. Yeah. So
Your
29
twenties
to
was
your
your 20s
20s.
was intense.
My 20s was like, this is what I would have to do to prep to go out, because that's what you do when you're 21. I would have to take a Pepsid AC before I go out with friends and have a drink, and then I'd have to bring the antacids at the restaurant, and then I'd have to take another one. And it was a whole thing to just go out to eat with my friends and have a drink if I wanted to. And
Damn.
it was crazy. Looking back now, I think we just get really comfortable getting into a routine and thinking it's normal, because at that point, everyone I talked to had said it was normal. They're like, yeah, I experienced acid reflux too, you know, it's your
Yeah.
food. Everything was so food focused, and my diet was like so boring. I remember I was working a 9 to 5 job at the time, pre-packed meal prep, you know, chicken, rice, like everything you could think of that's just boring meal prep. And everyone thought I was doing it because I was really healthy, which was true. I do value my health. But if I went outside the box, like, I would be hunched over in pain and couldn't
Damn.
even function. It was just crazy for your 20s. So I'm grateful for the experience now. It totally got me to really ask questions, but I just didn't ask questions for a long time until I just got sick and tired of being sick and tired. But I was trying to find answers that whole time. And then also taking so many different medications. Like, at one point, I was taking 4 different prescription medications for something I didn't have before they found out that it was GERD. And I remember my trainer at the time, his mom had just passed from cancer like the month prior, and he noticed that my eyes were yellow, and he was
Oh
like,
wow.
"Hey, what are you doing? That's different." And I told him, and he was like, "Yeah, I would just stop taking like everything you're taking, because it's just killing your
Your
insides."
liver was on fire.
Yeah, it was bad. So,
Mm.
Man.
um,
That is an origin story, Marcos. That is the origin story right there.
it's so weird. It's weird with GERD because it is really common, but in the research that I was looking up, it's like it's really common for people later in life. So
Mm.
everyone experiences acid reflux to some degree, something bad or whatever. Um, but as we get older, our bodies naturally, we're going to age and it's going to become more acidic. So if you don't fix the acid reflux, for most, it turns to GERD. But it usually doesn't happen until like your 50s, 60s. And here's the kicker. If you don't fix it from there, it goes from acid reflux to GERD to you can't eat solid food now. And I met a woman whose mom was at that level, and it terrified me because she was putting
Mm.
her food in a blender so she could eat it, because her esophagus was so, there was so much acidity in her esophagus that she just couldn't eat food anymore. And I was like, no, that's not gonna be me. Like, there's no way.
I have so many questions, and Seamus, this is where I truly wish my late my late friend Travis was around, because he's helped so many women with this particular problem. Granted,
That's
he's
awesome.
not with us anymore in the last 3 years. And he was like, buddy. He always called me buddy, Kayla. He's like, buddy. He was also like 10 years older than me, so he could call me buddy. It's like, you're gonna run into these problems when you get further into this nutrition stuff. And like the easy stuff is just gonna be like, again, a walk in the park, which is still way more than most people will give stock to.
Mhm.
But then you'll look for these complicated things, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to seek out someone that's like dealing with, what you're experiencing, Kayla, in all honesty, right? But I hear that and I was like, okay, like, is it high or low? Because the symptoms do present themselves in pretty similar fashions. And you're right, like even GI doctors will overlook that like typical question, which you would think, like, if you build a flow chart of that, let's figure out high or low, because there are similar symptoms to high and low. And so I've actually had some people, lady specific, literally just do a baking soda test. Have you ever done that?
No, this is the first time anyone has ever asked me that question.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay. Well, that was.
Marcos is in
I'm
depth
not
with
a gut
some.
health expert
I
by
love
any
it.
stretch of the imagination. What was that?
No, I love it.
Oh, okay. I'm not a gut health expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I know that that's typically the first question I look to ask these days. And then again, you can literally just take baking soda, like sodium bicarbonate,
Hmm.
and then do like you'll get a you do a it's basically a belch test. So you follow the protocol. It's a certain amount with water. You just drink it, and then you wait like 5 minutes, right? And then if you are burping, there's obviously a chemical reaction coming between the sodium bicarbonate because that's a base, right? So it neutralizes the acid, but it should create these air pockets, and therefore you're dealing with high stomach acid. So cool. But then if you have the other version of this where you don't get that after like 5 to 10 minutes, you have low stomach acid, meaning your body's working overdrive to try to produce that to break down your food. Therefore, when you consume food, you actually need digestive enzymes and hydrochloric acid and betaine in order to help aid your digestion along.
Which is
Which,
my problem, Kayla.
yeah.
I was like, okay,
So you, yeah, and so if you're taking a PPI, right, proton pump inhibitor, right, that's something that it masks. Is like it brings down your stomach acid when you actually need more. Yes, your symptoms maybe don't come up, but you're not getting to the root cause problem. And
mhm.
again, after hearing this, like what felt like 1,000 times from him, like explaining to me, I'm like, I'm never gonna run into anybody that's gonna be doing that. There's no way. And then, like, sure enough, you do this shit long enough, it comes around. So I would give that a try. It costs you no money if you have some
That's
baking soda.
interesting. Fun fact about me: I don't know how to burp. I know it's like
What?
so weird. I think I've burped like twice in my life. So, but I will try that just for you, just to see what happens. Um,
You've really burped two
This is
times in
the
your
clip
life.
right here.
it's so weird, like twice. My husband always laughs at me because when we first started dating, like I would do this little it's almost like a gurgle. Like my body's like trying to burp, but it never happens. I don't know. It's weird. People like this is news to everyone right now. I actually forgot this about myself until you just mentioned that. But
Kayla, it's
What?
try
interesting
that.
because the gut, yeah, it just seems like there's always like a rare case of gut health and how it manifests itself. And it seems like in your life, like your 20s had to be a rough and tumble, and then now you've figured out some of these things. But yeah, never burping. That's an interesting one.
I think
Not the weirdest case I've had. Not the weirdest case I've had. I've
RCPD? Have you been diagnosed with that?
I don't even know what that
Ret-
is.
retrograde cricopharyngeal dysfunction.
I'm like, is this a
Don't
disease
quote.
if you can't burp? Like it's
The inability to burp. It actually has like a dysfunction related to it. No burp syndrome. Let's roll with that. But RCPD, and
are
your
you
throat doesn't relax, preventing air from escaping the esophagus.
That's
Interesting.
funny. That's funny.
So I didn't even know that. It's funny. I've seen the opposite. We had a patient that had chronic hiccups and
really?
like legit just like was like years of having hiccups all day every day, just and it was funny because again, going back to just like medicine in general, right? You got to be your own advocate. He started taking a drug that should have relaxed it, and he didn't get any relief from it. So he's like, "Ah, f this, it's not working." Tried a bunch of other things. I think he said it was like 10 or 12 different medications to try to get some sort of relief,
Wow.
only to realize that they didn't dose him high enough with it originally. Went back to it, and then the first thing that he tried actually worked. So like again, medicine is so interesting because typical things that may or may not provide relief have so many different variables that could potentially be part of that personal experience. So again, when you mentioned like being your own health advocate and asking for things, it's just like, yeah, you have to, you got to pay the piper though. I mean, sure, an endoscopy wasn't cheap because it's probably not covered. And he's like, are you sure? You sure you want to do this, Kayla? You sure? Like, like this is probably like not there. You're $1,000 later, and a lot of people are like, well, what am I paying for with my insurance? So
It's true. That's like a whole other thing. We don't. I mean, yeah, we don't even like do traditional insurance anymore. I was like, that's we like. It's so interesting every time I do these because it makes me realize, oh shoot, we've come so far, especially since 2020. And I always tell people too, I'm not anti-Western medicine, whatever, no shade to doctors. I just think they're taught very different, and it would be nice if the first step could be genuine questions. Let's find the root cause so we can just not waste our time. Because in my experience, I didn't have that. And I had a doctor I'd had for years. I fully trusted her. That's a whole other thing. I dropped her after like 10 years because I saw her health decline. And that freaked me out. And I was like, it's like hiring like an overweight trainer, right? I'm like, this is not, working out. Like I'm seeing the decline. Like I can't keep taking advice from you, but it was just try this, try this, try this, try this. And I just felt like a guinea pig with no answers. And I talk to people all day long where they don't feel good. They know something's off, but they're going to the doctor and the doctor is telling them that it's normal. And that's what I heard for, over 12 years. It's really defeating when you don't have an answer. And then it's almost more defeating when you have an answer and there's just no solution for it, or you're being told there's no solution for it. So from that experience, it just made me learn this is my body. I'm allowed to ask what something is. There's nothing wrong with that, because for a long time I always looked at doctors as a figure of authority, and you just don't ask those questions. That was just the age that I grew up in. And, not in a disrespectful way, but I was just like, hey, I've been doing it your guys' way for a really long time and it's not working. So I'm serious now and I really want to figure out what this is. But if I had to guess, mine was probably high stomach acid just because of the solution that I found. So I went on this crazy rabbit hole of holistic stuff after this happened. I was like, there's no way this is going to be me. I didn't see a solution long term. I'm like, I can't be taking medicine until I'm 50, 60, 70 because obviously I'm going to get older. Like something else is going to pop up. I might need to add to this list of medication, so like how can I just kind of get rid of it or something? And so I started talking to people, and that's when I realized how common that it was. And for me to be able to talk about it now, no problem. But at the time, I was very in the health and fitness space. I looked great on the outside, but I felt like crap every day. I wasn't talking about it. I wasn't being vulnerable about it. And also why I always tell people, do not judge a book by its cover. Like you never know what someone is going through internally, whether that's mental or physical, right? Like everyone's going through something. And I started talking, and through that series of stuff, a friend of mine, he's like, hey, I just bought this machine for my mom who she had cancer at the time, and he's just like going on and on and on about it. And at that point I had totally gone down a rabbit hole of water. It was kind of like the missing link that no one was talking about. Everything was like nutrition and vitamins and all this stuff. And that was the first time he was like, what about your water? I was like, well, what about it? He's like, I was like, what do you mean? Because I drink a lot of water. And at the time I was drinking Fiji bottled water and I loved it. No shade to anyone that drinks that at all. And he showed me some stuff, and then I upgraded to going to a store and then doing it in glass and then getting rid of the plastic. And it was just like this weird progression, and it got really expensive. So he's like, why don't you just try this? It does 100 different things. Like, told me all about it. He's like, this is just going to make more sense long term. You'll have it forever. Just try it. And so he let me try the water from the machine for 2 weeks, and all my symptoms went away. And that was 7 years ago.
That's really powerful. That's
what
really
kind
powerful.
of system?
So the company's called Enagic. They've been around for 50 years. It's the Kangen machine. Some people have heard about it. Some people haven't. The second he told me about it, I went on Google, and it was like everything negative. Alkaline water's bad for you, and this is a scam, and blah blah blah. But this was like someone that I knew and I was close friends with at the time, and he was so passionate about it. And he's like, just try it for free. I'm like, I'm not gonna turn down something for free. And honestly, at that point, like I'd already tried everything else. I had done the doctors, and I was doing detoxes and the chiropractor and acupuncture, and like there's like nothing else I don't think I could have done. And yeah, so that's the machine, and it was crazy.
No, it's cool. And you had a powerful response. I mean, for the fact that you started drinking some type of water and you then didn't have your symptoms anymore is powerful. First off, I do have a Kangen water machine. I've had it for a long time. It's funny. Alkaline water does get a bad rap. I think the science behind it is like your stomach will turn everything into acid.
Hmm.
I get it. I've read some studies though, and there were some studies that were indicative of like hydration rates and like sports performance athletes,
Yes.
um, and and it had better hydration significantly. Maybe not. But I think water though. Marcos and I have been talking about this. Like I think water is very much underlooked though
Hmm.
as a health outcome. Like we talk about like your supplements, your nutrition. Like, are you doing regenerative farming, or are you eating grass fed, or you're trying to do all these things, but then you would still get water from the tap or something like that. And as I see it, I don't know. I mean, there's certain doctors that I do respect talk about water in a way where it's like, well, the research or the publications don't say anything bad about it, but our water is kind of like a quote unquote like a tea right now because it's got different types of things in there like chlorinized water, and it's got toxins, microplastics. And when you look at other countries like France or
Hmm.
Europe, they're doing like a
Mm.
reverse osmosis with their water. They're doing they're adding ozone to their water because in O3, no bacteria, no virus can survive. So they're doing that. And then they're also doing like red light therapy on their water. I know that the Kangen machine doesn't necessarily do that, but when I use it, it's like it makes the pH 9.5 and then it makes the pH for this other water in another bucket like acidic. And yeah, it was pretty cool. I like it. I've been drinking that for all my life. I liked it.
That's awesome. I didn't even know about it. I mean, like I said, the company had been around for 50 years. There was not really anything great on Google about it. And my doctor immediately was like, no, alkaline water is bad. And I was like, okay, well, this actually isn't alkaline water from the research I'm reading. And, why is it bad and all this kind of stuff. And so then he was like, well, the only time you want your stomach to be acidic is when it's breaking down food. And then all the other times, everyone's trying to eat an alkaline diet to why? Keep your body alkaline. But it's harder to do it like that. And of course, your food and nutrition is still, of course, it's important, but your body's mostly made up of water, not food. So I was like, well, I don't understand why it's not starting there. Like, my doctor had never said anything to me about water. And he was kind of just brushed it off, like, yeah, like you could do whatever. I'm not buying it. Again, advocate for my own health. I was like, this is water. It's not going to harm me. Let me just try it. And then I just had a crazy testimony with it. So I've been able to help people with a ton of different health issues across the board the last 7 years. And again, I always preface
Mm.
with I'm not a doctor, like by any means. This is a true story that happened to me. No one else could tell me otherwise. I've seen the craziest testimonies at this point. Like, seeing is believing. The research is there. But honestly, you know what I liked about the machine for someone who just really wanted to make a chemical free transition? There's 100 different ways to use it. And the machine
Hmm.
lasts for 50 years. So I'm like, full transparency, the machine's like 6K now. So I'm telling my friends,
Yeah,
if I'm going to drop 6K, I'm gonna need you to tell me, like, and I had a crazy testimony, so I need to know, like, how am I gonna use this? So we cook with it, we clean with it, we haven't bought water in 7 years. I mean, we definitely made our money back on it, but for 50 years, it's like we move with it, we travel with it, we're like very dedicated to it. But we've saved so much money. So in doing the numbers, I was like, I'll spend 6K in about 2 years anyway. So it just made more sense. So I didn't have to go out and buy all these other products. I'm like, I'll just press a button and then I could just do it from the machine. A lot
Yeah.
easier.
Yeah. I know, like so obviously I drink the water, and then we use the other ones for like cleaning,
Hmm.
like other water for like cleaning products and stuff like that. It's great. I was like, this is great. This is cool. I love it. It's cool. I definitely love the Kangen water. It's good. You had like such a significant like change though as soon as you tried that water. So like everything was the same that 2 weeks that you tried it, but you tried this water, and for the first time, you're like, whoa, you had
Crazy.
no symptoms, nothing.
No symptoms. And I always tell people, like, I've worked with so many different people with a ton of different health issues. So everybody's body is different, right? It's like you wouldn't expect to go to the gym for a week and have abs. Like, this is not what this is. It's not like a crazy cure, fix, anything. But when you create the right environment for your body, and I know you guys know this, it will start to work for you versus against you. That's why we talk about the supplements and the food. It's like your gut health. It's all related. And when you don't feel good, you
Yeah.
just aren't thinking about anything else. So I didn't change anything. I was already a healthy person. I was eating well. I didn't drink soda. I wasn't drinking alcohol for a while. I cut out coffee, and I was like, I'm just gonna let my body do its thing. And I had zero expectation on the length of time. I drank at least a gallon a day, nothing else for 2 weeks. And for me, this was just the missing link. And for a lot of other people who are already healthy, or they feel like they're healthy and they're just like, what the heck? I'm doing all the things. This tends to be the missing link. And I've had people try other things, and I feel like this is kind of like the last stop for people where they'll try everything else because, they don't want to pay $6,000. They end up spending that anyway on all the other things, and then they kind of just land here anyway.
Your post was so good though. I love your post. They're like, people pay like $1,000 for Taylor Swift tickets. Like it was like all these different things, and then you're like, but this is the same price, and it's like this is like not it's something you deal with every day, and it's way more important. Like this is what touches your life. A lot of people don't understand like water. Like there's been a lot of books about water. I know probably Marcus has read that, like water being like this missing link, H2O. Like
Yeah.
we're like 75% water, and people don't realize like the water that they're ingesting is great. And I think it's such a big thing. They're finding more now. I think Marcos and I were talking about this, but I was talking about it with some people because I was at the Don't Die Summit with Brian Johnson like last week, and a lot of the people there are very cognizant about what they do. They're the health and wellness advocate for themselves, but the water that they take is, in plastic or this, or I do my best to try to like have it in my thing, or I do have plastic sometimes, but it's like, but the water itself has like lead, arsenic, or, chromium or different things. And like, you just have to be proactive with the water that you're intaking because like you are, having it all the time. And then also at the same time, not only the water that you're intaking, but the water like in your systems, in your house systems too. Like Marcos, remember Ben Greenfield? He has like his whole water system. Even his washer and dryer is like connected
Awesome.
to it, so his clothes are
That's
not.
awesome.
Yeah, that's like high level, like high level, like water. Like a smart home kind of level.
Yeah. The thing for me is like, if you guys don't know this about me, like I'm a very simple person. Like I make everything very simple. Someone's like, I want the research and da 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 da. I'm like, here you go. Here's a video. Here's a book. Here's a doctor. Like, don't take it from me. Like, I'm not the scientist. I'm just a like testimony from the product I'm using, and now I'm sharing it with people. But your body is mostly made up of water. It makes sense to look into it, but it is tough because I see these influencers, and it's like I wake up and I use my hyperbaric chamber in the morning, and then I do this and I do that, and it's like it's awesome, but it is not 100% like sustainable for the average person, right? So I think
Yeah.
sometimes people see this and they just get so overwhelmed. They're like, "Oh my gosh, like I can't afford this and I can't afford that," and it's like all the things. So I just tell, just start with one thing. Just start with one thing. Don't get overwhelmed. I was totally there. I've obviously advanced in my health journey since finding this 7 years ago. I've implemented a ton of different things. It's like having a morning routine. Like, don't try to do 20 things in the morning. Just start with one thing. And then you can just add. So for me, this was just a really easy change. The company has different products. The machine is their flagship. It's kind of just where I
Yeah.
tell everyone to start because it's the most bang for your buck. Honestly, you're gonna have it for forever. And the oldest one is 50 years old, so at least you know that much. But there's also a shower unit, which we also have. There's a turmeric supplement, air radiation blocker. Like they're really have been like advancing and continuing to grow, which is really nice. But yeah, I hear you. And it's really interesting with water because 7 years ago when I bought the machine, the only buzzword people were a little bit familiar with was alkaline water. And that was it. Like fake alkaline water, like in the bottle alkaline water, you know? And now, because there's so much like marketing and there's, you know, hydrogen, molecular hydrogen, and electrolyte reduced water, and da, 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 and like it's great for the awareness, but now I think people are like so bombarded on the daily on social media with like all this stuff that they're almost like getting confused, you know, like what's the difference between this and this, and it's just like it's nice that people are
Yeah.
asking the questions, but I'm like, you guys, like you're just making it so complicated. Like everyone wants to be a researcher with their water. Like you're eating hot Cheetos at home. Like stop. Like just start somewhere. Like it doesn't need to be that complicated. Like make a change
So good.
and then like see
You
what
mean
happens. You know, if you feel a difference, then like that's awesome. But just try to make a little change. You know.
yeah, I mean information is getting watered down. But sorry, you
I
was
know.
way up there.
I get this all the time, and I'm like, you guys, like, I don't. It's like I would rather someone just make one little simple step in the right direction, whether it's this or
Oh,
not.
yeah.
Obviously, this is my business. Obviously, it works. No one could tell me otherwise, and but I always tell people like it is not my job to convince someone to be healthier. It's my job to help people who want to be healthier. So like if someone comes to me and they're like, "Hey, I'm done. I want to learn about this. Like I'm ready." You are my person. You know, if someone's like trying to force someone to be healthier and they're just not having it, I'm like, "Oh, it's so tough." Like it's probably the toughest. I know it is the toughest thing being in this industry when you can help somebody and they just like don't want it. It's really, really hard, but I can totally also understand that there's a lot of info out there and people don't know where to start, or they're watching the news and one day it says almonds are good and then tomorrow it says almonds are bad, and I totally get that too. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough. But we have so many options. We have so many resources. Like this is such a positive, especially living here. If you live in California, like I don't want to hear it. We have access to so much stuff. We're so spoiled here.
So true, but being kind of like you said early on, like took something going wrong for long enough for you to eventually make the change, right? And so many people, I mean, there are like really, it's one thing, it's one particular moment in people's lives, and it's proverbial rock bottom. And that rock bottom could be because of emotional, like being like emotionally distraught, could be because of your health literally getting out of order for like the physical side of things. So it's like the emotional, financial, really like again, our 5 pillars. If one of those goes to shit at some point, right? Like that's usually when people will eventually make a change, which is why we're like, hey, trying to be an advocate of like, hey, if you pay attention to these pillars, again, your family, your fitness, your finances, your brain or your focus, and Seamus, what's the last F? I feel like I've had order. Food. Yeah.
and an adjunct, faith. Faith. We put faith in there, but yeah.
Yeah, faith is focus. I mean, brain, how you spirituality. We chose to maybe not use that F in quasi intentionally, but I feel like faith is making a big run going into this 2025 because of I don't know, the generations like search for meaning. I mean, a lot of people are searching for more meaning in different places, but if all those things hit that low point, there are things that you're going to then step in with to try to make that change, right? I'm not close again, like quote, I'm not close enough with God. I need to fix that spiritual bond, right? I feel like my food is out of order and it shows on the scale, my body fat percentage and all these other health markers are here. I'm emotionally, mentally a wreck, right? Like you have these moments where they're all kind of crying out to you, like make a change. But until you've been like at your lowest of lows with whether it's with all those categories or whatever it is, like that's what eventually makes the change. Unfortunately, it usually is like you winding up in some form of hospital, then makes you understand, hey, I need to make this change.
100%.
Right. And again, like Seamus and I being in like longevity field, it's like, again, how do you explain that to people when they try to come sign up? Like, again, like, hey,
dude, that's
I know.
gosh.
It's kind of like you're saying, Kayla. It's like, hey, we know that like what our product's trying to do is just trying to help you have this extended quality of life. But like, again, I can't eat the food for you. I can't take your medications for you. I can't go do the workouts for you. I can't do anything for you. I can just
And
purely
also too,
suggest what you can do.
Marcos, like the hard thing too is like sometimes even for the smartest people, longevity is like we're in our 30s. Like it like if someone was thinking about longevity, if they're not at that tail end, they're not coming into the office
Mm-hmm.
or coming into Synergenics or coming into a longevity health span program. And even then it might be a little bit too late. I think like there's some things that we can start managing at like someone coming in at 55, 65. But if you predominantly dealing with like obesity, diabetes, or cancer risk of some sort,
Yeah.
we can do as much as we can to reverse that out. But that risk is there. I mean, the human body is amazing. But it's true. I think like if you're younger, like Kayla, like you were like younger, you actually had the even though it was unfortunate, but you had the fortunate circumstances to have that pain to go, okay, I'm gonna fix it up, and you know how bad it can be, so you're
Yeah.
never gonna go fucking back there, right? Some
Yeah.
people live a life where they are dealing with consequences. I'll use easy analogies like alcohol.
Hmm.
They drink it, they do it all the time. It's not necessarily tapping into their life too much, but it slowly starts creeping in. Slowly,
Yeah.
and then next thing you know, it's 20 years, 30 years later, and then it's this hard thing to break. And now they're dealing with all the health consequences later. And it's hard to tell someone about longevity because it's like, well, Seamus, I'm not dealing with something now. Yeah, you aren't now, but you want to be optimized or doing the best that you can so that when you do get to that bridge, you don't have to deal with it in a way that is intensive or truly putting you in pain. And sometimes the only way for you to get that is like you have to have been in that pain
I
for you to
know.
be like, nah, not happening. Or you have to have
Yeah.
seen someone go through it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, yeah, when you're young, I mean, I wasn't thinking about that when I was in my 20s. I mean,
You're dying when you're
I was
16. You're like, ah.
I was dying and like trying to party at the same time, which made no sense because like that's what all my friends are doing, and so silly. But whatever, that's what you do when you're 20.
It's
You know, that's why I tell people I'm
it's
like, just your 30s are the sweet spot. You know, it's like you're older and you're wiser, but you're still young and you've learned a lot. And yeah, I mean, yeah, some people. I think like for you guys and like with what we're all doing. It's getting people to really see the long term vision. And I think like everybody's goal is different because if you're doing that stuff in your 20s, like it sounds bad, but like we can all think of some people in high school who were like not living the healthiest and then like they sustain that lifestyle for like 10, 15 years and like it
mm-hmm.
shows now. Like when you're
Yeah.
doing it, you don't think it's making a big difference, and then eventually it catches up to you. You know, like for everybody, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Like you can't fake it. And I'm not talking about like not aging. You know, it's like I don't even use that word anymore. It's like anti-aging. You know, I just totally stopped using it. I'm like, no, everyone's gonna age. Like it's normal, but you know, we're just trying to get there slower and not feel like crap. Like if I'm gonna be like 90 years old, 80 years old, 7 years old, I don't want to be like crippled and in pain. I want to be like as coherent as I possibly can, be able to like walk and move my body, and you know, it's the little things that you really start to care about when you get older. I deal with that even now. Sometimes I talk to like professional athletes and they're like, "Oh, I'm so healthy," and I'm like, "What? Don't you want like optimal health? Like healthier? Like you're an athlete. Like what is happening? You know?" And some athletes and get it, and I've helped those too. But yeah, it's tough. But to your point, I'm that person that had to get sick before I cared, so I also get that too.
No, yeah, it's again, it's what I've noticed is like anybody can tell me that they're actually motivated, but like I almost have to pull that pain point out of them or see if they've actually experienced that to understand if they're actually ready to make a change or not, you know? And again, like I've witnessed, I've witnessed instances of, you know, miraculous change for a lot of people with a variety of different things that you might say like, they don't even make sense. Like the superfood actually made a world of a difference for somebody. And again, what Seamus and I like to talk about is like, you don't necessarily, you just can't be a charlatan. You can't be basically proclaiming from the mountaintops that like, hey, this is the solution. And you're really not. You're like, hey, water was one of the missing links for me. Maybe it'll make a difference for you. You could try this out. And again, if you can give people the gift of trying it without having to spend 6 G's, that's, again, I would have taken that up any day of the week too, and nowadays too, again, like, hey, like, I mean, trying things out, like, I have a reverse osmosis system where I have to, I know that total the dissolved solids are, somewhere between 0 and 100 for most of the year, right? And then I have to replace it, right?
Mhm.
And even my wife is like, she's like, I hate to sound snobby, but like, I don't like drinking any water but our own. And I was like, it's not snobby. It's just that, like,
Not
like, the Vegas's finest tap water when you go out to a restaurant does taste like ass. Like, it's not good. So,
Dude, I'm in LA right now dealing with the fires.
Oh,
We haven't been able to drink the water from our tap, and I'm not gonna do it for a while. But like, I have to get
oh,
water from the water systems here and stuff like that. Yeah.
that's crazy. I didn't even think about that. That is like I didn't realize like the infrastructure of water would be such a, in a first world country that you would be considering that, Seamus. Like, that's crazy. Maybe I should be checking in with you more, even if I talk to you every day. How you doing over there in LA, bro?
I'm doing okay, man. I'm doing okay. Our two homes, we had to almost evacuate, but we're good.
Yeah, but so Kayla, like, you is that part of the business that you work for? Is selling that particular unit?
yeah, that's the business.
Okay,
So essentially,
that is the business.
that is the business. So when I bought the machine 7 years ago, I was a customer, but I was naturally talking to people about it. It wasn't like my full-time thing, and 100% I did everything wrong in this business when I first got the machine, because I was definitely word vomiting on everybody about it because I was freaking out. I'm like, this is crazy. I don't understand.
It's like the first time someone learned about CrossFit. Yo, have you heard about CrossFit?
Oh yes. It was just so bad. But I had like a 9 to 5, and I was just like, I'm a cubicle with my water, and anyway, because at the time I was like, I wish someone would have told me about it sooner. And I deal with a lot of anybody that's like new coming into this business. I'm like, don't do it. Like, I think there's a reel somewhere, like when you're at a party, I think it's just a health and wellness reel, and like someone's talking about their gut health issues, and there's like 10 people like whispering behind, like they just want to tell them like all the things, but maybe they're just like not ready for it. But I was just
I mean, I feel like when you're a health and wellness advocate, and like nutrition coaches get this a lot. So like I'm in like a nutrition coaching like group, and it's like we're doing everything right. We're like doing the meal prep, we're drinking the right water, and then our mom or our cousin or like everyone in our family, and like Kayla, I'm half Filipino. Like, you met my fiance Desiree. Like, Filipinos are abhorrently super unhealthy, like a lot. And you're like, you have to hold your tongue at family events because you're like, like. But how do I say this? Like Marcos and I know this the best. You can't help people that aren't ready for it or aren't even seeking it out, and you shouldn't open your mouth. So I get what you're saying.
and it doesn't help anyway. It's like the vegan at the table that like has to tell everybody they're vegan and just goes on and on about it. And I was like, I have vegan friends, no shame to vegans, but that is the most annoying thing. So like, never in my life would I sit down at a table and be like, that water's bad. It's like, that's not gonna make people want to change. It's gonna make them feel like worse about themselves. It's not a good tactic anyway. I think the best thing is just like lead by example, and results will never lie. Regardless of what anyone says, like, results don't lie. And over time, people just will look at that versus like anything you say at them. But yeah, 7 years ago when I bought the machine, I was a customer. I was working a full-time job at the time, totally different career path. I had my master's in organizational leadership. I was working for this company, what I thought I like wanted to do long term. And then 2020 happened, and I lost that job. And I was like, at the time, I was doing fitness stuff part time. I was like, what can I do from home that's in health and wellness that I like? And I had like my own pillars also, and I just made a list. I'm like, if I had my dream job, what would it be? And this just hit every single box. So I'm like, you know what? I already have a testimony with it. I like it. It makes sense. Let me just see what happens. I am like really big on my faith. So I'm like, let me pray on it, and let's just see. I have some time. Everyone's at home. We'll just slow down. And I'm not kidding. Ashley, this girl who I did not know at all, slides into my DMs And she goes, hey, I want to buy a machine. I'm like, what? I didn't even know how to like do that at the time. Like even in 2020, now it's very easy. It's like a click of a link. It was manual paperwork, and I'm just like, sure. And I just figured it out. And so anyway, that's like kind of what got me back into the business. I really just was just trying it in 2020, and it went really well for me. So now this is what I do full time. So I just tell people like Enagic is not my company. I partnered with them, and that's what they do. They have a ton of different medical grade holistic products, and so that's what I do full time. And I still do fitness part time, which I love. But yeah, it's given us.
Are you teaching like classes or something like fit or like personal training?
I do teach group fitness classes. My husband's a personal trainer. He like both of us just totally pivoted in 2020. It was the craziest, toughest year, but it ended up being the biggest blessings. Now we just are doing what we love, and I have the time, the financial freedom, time freedom, which was really big for me. Every job I had before, I was just really hitting a cap of how much money I could make, or is the office politics? They're afraid you're going to take your job. And it was just kind of like the same thing every place. And for me, I was like, well, if I can't, like anytime I'm growing, that's like my happy place. And I feel good in that space. And at every job I had, it was like, that's it. Someone's got to die or get demoted or something for you to kind of move up and make more
Can I?
money.
Can I ask you a question? Because this is like, I first off, I love this story because like I kind of have a similar thing.
Okay.
Got my degree. I was managing gyms, and then 2020 kind of happened, and gyms were falling out. And I love the gym space. I was helping scale businesses. We are doing like the gym launch model, Alex Hormozy style, selling
That's
supplements
awesome.
and all these things. But then the world called, and I was introduced to Synergenics. Marcos was one of the first people that trained me. He was my mentee
That's cool.
the second week on the job, and he's one of the best. But I feel like the story there is like, how crazy is it for the listener? Like, you had your master's, you were crushing in your career, but disregarding like COVID and lockdowns, like even though you had your education and everything like that, I feel like you probably still would have made that leap into a different business or something like that, because it might be like your personality. Like, what are your thoughts on like that? Like a person starting over, like to take a leap of faith, even if the circumstances weren't necessarily like dire, like COVID was, for example.
It's a good question. I think I would have done it, but probably a lot later because I was very comfortable, to be honest. And that's what keeps people stuck. Is I was very comfortable. I didn't have to worry about anything. I was just like, we even laughed before now. I'm like, oh, 2019, like, what's that like? Like, just life before 2020 was just a little crazy, and it was good in a lot of ways, and it was bad in a lot of ways. Also, I think it was just like crippling me for sure. So, do I think I would have gotten to where I'm at now? Yes, but honestly, do I think it would have happened a lot later? Yes, because there was no pain point. I didn't have a pain point. Like something was going to have to happen for me to move and shift. And at the time when this was happening, I'm like, okay, like, everything happens for you, not to you. I'm like a naturally pretty positive person. So I'm just like, what is happening here? Like, you guys, I don't even watch the news. So I didn't even know that this was happening. Which is like a whole other thing. I went in to teach a class and someone's like, oh, didn't you hear they're closing Orange County? I'm like, no, I don't even know what that means. My parents are like shipping us tuna. Like, it was weird. I was like, you guys are weird. I don't know what is happening. Like, we're healthy, we're fine. So, it was definitely like a smack in the face. I think we thought it was going to be like a month thing, like most people, and lasted a really long time. But to answer your question,
It's supposed to be 2 weeks. It's supposed to be 2 weeks.
I was like, no way. We had like a bet going, and my brother-in-law was the only one. He's like, a year. This is going to be a year. I'm like, a year of what? Like, we can't live like this. Like, this is crazy. So, would I have gotten there? Yes, I think so, but not as quickly as I did it now. I had a reason, now, since 2020, full time. Now I do this full time and then I just teach part time, and it's just been like the best thing ever. We've gotten to travel, meet people all over the world. It's a global business that you could do from your phone on Zoom. Like it's awesome. I think my first person is in Sarah in New Zealand. It's wild because here's the thing: everyone drinks water, and everyone is paying for it. And here people have a lot of questions about a lot of things, and that's fine. But where the biggest market is? India. India. Isn't that crazy? Because it's just, they understand the importance of good, clean water. They don't have a lot of options there. They're like, this makes sense, lasts longer, whatever. But anyway, yeah, so just a total blessing. But I guess the whole world had to shut down to just get me to move and shift.
I mean,
it worked out.
It's just, yeah, I think everybody has their defining moment of when you decided to take that leap of faith in the right ways. And a lot of people really did pivot in 2020. And it's funny you kind of mentioned like certain actions or things happening to you as a result of like your mind being focused on wanting to make that change. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like what Seamus and I had to do when we recuperated from last year of knowing workload in corporate life would be higher. So it was like a backseat with our lives, trying to podcast and do things independently, only to find out like we got to be seeking the independent stuff, because that's where we actually create like the freedoms that we're enjoying most. And, point in case, it's like this is the start of 2025. We're a month into it already, like crazy times flying. And there's a lot of things back on the table as soon as we made that like definitive choice of being like, hey, 2 episodes a week. We're, Monday, Thursday, this is happening. All right. One on Thursdays with a guest. All right. We got to find more guests. Seamus has been crushing it. I think he like literally booked 10 people in the last like 3 days. Don't know how. And then we're like, okay, content. All right. Content strategy. All right. Consistently. We all have, 2 from the podcast, 2 independent. So like there's, basically every day of the week, there's something from us. And you don't understand the impact that those little changes can make until you have that conversation with other people. And it wasn't until today, like, I think I liked an old client of mine's photo. I'm like, oh, they're posting about their business. And I was like, that was like thinking of you. Great job. I'm glad you guys are still crushing it with that. They sent me a text like 15 minutes later, like, there's 2 of them. And they're like, oh my God, we were just thinking about you. We're just talking about you. And you over here like my thing, I was like, all right, small world. She's like, then they said, hey, I've been seeing you a lot on my feed. And I was like, oh yeah, that's intentional. Like that's like, I'm glad that like people are noticing that. But every time you put that intention forward in whatever category or pathway you're looking to, uphold to, it can make a difference. And it feels good to hear that. It's like you just said, that random person slid into the DMs, right? I had another person that I wouldn't call her random, but like this random person slid into the DMs with an opportunity of a lifetime yesterday. And I'm like, sick. Like, this is exactly what I needed to have happen right now. And it's super encouraging, and it's different, and it's a networking thing. And it's also an opportunity to kind of actually take action on the things that, like you'd spoken of, right? Like you just like, okay, like it's time to go in on these things. It's time to like figure out how to make that happen. I think everybody should, if you made it this far into this episode, like really understand that like, Kayla's obviously talking about like a passion project and a passion of like figuring out her health led to a career path for her. And, if you're trying to be an advocate for your health, you have to ask those deeper questions. And, no, doctors don't always have the answer.
No, they don't.
Kind of like you were saying, right? The best type of medicine, if you will, is East meets West, right? Western medicine does a fantastic job of being able to help maybe treat some underlying conditions in acute natures. But when it comes to kind of chronic things, you definitely have to take a deeper look under the hood and maybe use some non-traditional therapies to try to see if that can make a difference for you. Much like you, Kayla, like the water being a missing link, the thing you're consuming every day, a gallon of it,
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely like that. I wish wish I had $6,000 to drop on it. I know I'll hit you up when I'm ready to make that upgrade to my water unit in the near future. But yeah, I mean, Seamus and I did an episode about oils the other day,
Oh,
and I told
cool.
him, I was like, I told him, I was like, yeah, dude, now I'm using a ton of fucking butter because I don't have non-stick pans anymore. I have to use stainless steel, and I'm over here just like scrubbing my life away. So, all these little
My
things for,
experience, a lot of different things, a lot of different health.
say that again?
Yeah.
I said it's cool that you guys have the podcast, and I'm proud of you guys too. I always tell people, like, having your own business, entrepreneurship, like, it is not for the faint of heart. I know people see stuff online and it looks fun, and it is, but it's a lot of work. I wouldn't trade it for anything, just for the freedom that it brings. Honestly, that's just something that I value the most, especially like if you have kids and having the time to just like do all the things and work from home. It's really great. But we saw so many people shift in 2020, and that was like the coolest thing. The coolest
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, you're not alone. Everyone's trying to figure it out. It's totally possible. And when you get to the other side of it, it's just really awesome. And I love that social media has been so positive for you guys. I've had the same experience. I think there's pros and cons to everything,
Mhm.
but social media just untaps a whole level of, you could just reach so many people. It is crazy. Of like-minded people.
Yeah.
You could literally just post who you are and what you like, and then attract other people who also like the same stuff. Like, it's so simple, and I love that. So I'm proud of you guys
Yeah.
for making that leap too.
Thank
No, we
you.
appreciate that. We appreciate that. Thank you. I'll take those words. And definitely, I think when it comes to just bringing it back from the beginning, and we'll kind of close off here, when you have a pain point and you have an advocate for your health, like that's been my whole thing. I got lucky. I got into the field that I wanted to get into like that, but that was because I had my pain points, being an athlete, handling issues with pain and injuries and body dysmorphic tendencies, and it got me to where I'm at now, to talking about health and wellness in a way that people can consume and be an advocate for themselves. Because here's the thing, we created the podcast, and I know now that like we've reached over 100 episodes, but I know now that I think our podcast has to keep coming out, has to keep going, because I feel that not only did we do it for ourselves, Marcus and I proved it to ourselves, like, hey, yo, 2 years later, we did it. But realizing,
Big deal.
oh, shoot, there's like a responsibility now, because I think people are coming to podcasts, to different sources of media, to learn about health and wellness things, or just about any other topics that we like to have. And we are able to get that avenue. So we appreciate you coming on, because your story is going to resonate with somebody, and they're going to try to figure out something for themselves. Because here's the I like both Marcos and I like do deep dives, and we'll go deep into like research, and it's part of our freaking job. But if I can't make you move, if I don't have the ability to give you the expertise in your hand to make a decision, to make a move now, I haven't done a good job. Like that's all I care about. I couldn't care about the right answer. I care about just making the first step, and we'll find a better answer down the line. So, Kayla, I really do appreciate your time. I know you've got to get to your day and everything, but where can people find you? Any last words here on the pod?
Yeah, thank you guys both so much for having me. I mean, I know we met in person and then connected on Instagram, so it's cool. I love social media for that reason. I think if I could say anything to anyone who's listening, whether the person is, if you're healthy or you think you're healthy or you're sick or whatever it is, like, kudos to you for just even educating yourself at all on a podcast. That is a huge first step. Just don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't care about what other people think. Just think for yourself. Be an advocate for your health. It's totally okay to find out your own information outside of what your doctor is saying. If you have someone that you know, like, and trust, great, but there's no harm in asking questions. That would have led me to the solution that I have now a lot quicker had I done that. And just having someone say, like, hey, it's okay to learn and educate yourself and ask questions. The best place to reach me, honestly, is Instagram. Kayla.Barrow on Instagram. I'm very active on there. I always tease everybody. I'm pretty on it. So if I send somebody a message and they don't respond, I'm like, hey, you're looking at my stuff. It's me. I can see that you're looking at it. I just am a really big connector. I like meeting whoever is like coming to my page. So don't be shy if you have a question or if you just want to connect. I'm open to that too.
Perfect. Awesome. Marcos, any last words here to close us off, man?
No, I'm really wanting some water now, and definitely now questioning just everything that's going on in my shower. Actually, I do have a question, Kayla. What are your thoughts on like water filters for your shower? To end this off, do you have a filter for?
A great one. There's a company called Advocacy. It's been around for 50 years, and they also have a shower filtration system. So yeah, it's funny.
No shit.
Yeah, I was saying like briefly touched on this, but we bought the machine. It was for like the drinking water, obviously. But then I saw this craziest demonstration that was done at one of our events where this guy named Dr. Michael like stuck 2 fingers in tap water and then like 2 fingers in our shower filter, and like nothing was absorbed in ours because it was no chemicals, and the other one like all the chlorine like stuck to his fingers. It was the grossest thing. I was like, what is happening? So now we have the shower unit as well. So it's like showering in a Japanese mineral hot spring.
Oh, I like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've also heard great things about Japanese toilets, and I think we can wrap it up there. That I've heard those are on a completely different level. So
Japanese everything. That's where the company's from. It's from Okinawa, Japan, and I just feel like I haven't been to Japan personally, but they are just so ahead of the game in so many different ways. It's crazy. So yeah,
from the perspective of cleaning. Yeah. I mean, what's the cost of that unit for the shower, out of curiosity?
Yeah, the shower unit is around $3K.
$3K. I guess I do use it every day, so it's like I still need to buy my cooling bed that's $3,000, and I got to get the shower unit that's $3,000, and then I need the whole plunge that's $3,000.
I was like, okay, this is what got me. Also, is payment plans like everything, obviously.
Okay, so you can finance it.
Yeah, you can finance the machine for like, $60 to $200. The shower unit is the same, like $100 a month. You can totally finance it, but every product that you purchase through Enagic is 100% tax write-off. And aside from the fact that like you can move with it, because a lot of people do whole house things and then like you can't move with those, you have to repay it. But it's the number one thing everyone's like, how? Because it's a medical device. And I'm like, no. So the loophole is when you purchase any of the products from the company under the Direct Sellers Association, it is considered an at-home based business. And that is how you're able to write it off. However, you're not required to sell anything if you don't want to.
Oh, we have our LLCs, Marcos. That's easy, bro. And we should use it for marketing material, right, Kayla? Because like we're health and wellness professionals, so
yeah, you don't have to put it under a business name or do like a business tax. It's like very simple. You just put it under your own name, an individual sole proprietorship, and then you write it off. So that tends to. I don't know any other company that does that. So it's a very no-brainer.
That's
next level.
Well, wow. Okay.
Marcos is sold. Marcos is like, oh.
I need some deductions for 2025 now that I'm thinking about it, outside of paying people for their blood, sweat, and tears. But
I'm with you. Yeah, we do the same thing. So we're in the same boat, and
yeah. Okay. Well, the last question about the shower unit in terms of setup and ease of using it. What was your experience like with that? Because I really have been looking at some, at least chlorine removing products for like shower, just for like hair, skin, and nails. More so for my wife. Like I'm a dude, we can give a fuck less at times about like what our aesthetic looks like. But for her, like the other day, she's like, I feel like the soap isn't soaping today. And she's like, I feel dry. And granted, it's partly my fault because I didn't put salt in the water softener wasn't high enough. But she like noticed it immediately, and she's like, my skin feels. She's like, I have to like get out of the shower and put lotion on. That's not like me. I'm like, okay, And then I was thinking, I was like, okay, well maybe this is also just like our water's, not even just the hardness of the water, but also that chlorine again could be like a little bit of causing an issue. And again, going back, Kayla, I really wish that my buddy, again, going back to 2020, I wish that wasn't the thing that got him, complications with COVID. So, I mean, that's at least what, as far as I know, I actually need to reach out to his mom and find out what the true details of all of it was. Now that it's been a few years. But like, he was such an advocate of like, again, everything in glass, look at your source of water, getting these things like really purified, and then how to attack things from that really non-conventional lens, in addition to like the conventional wisdom of doctor guidance. So he was really trying to become that integrative like practitioner and like pursuing his whatever it was, DO or whatever type of physician, but like incorporating these practices as part of what he did, like as an integrated practitioner. You would have loved the guy for like all those nuances. And I guarantee he would have been able to help you even further with your health journey. But yeah, like I needed this today. Thank you for your time and, helping me think about him in his memory.
Yeah, it's Tanner, right?
Tanner?
Is that his name?
Travis.
Yeah, it's Travis. It's sad. I always tell people like everyone is heading in that direction, and sometimes things happen, and you could be doing all the things, but I think that on a day-to-day basis, people are really unaware of the little changes that are actually like really, really, really big changes. And something like that. Like I said, it took me seeing like one demonstration of someone putting their fingers in a little cup for me to be like, what the heck is that? It's tough now for me and our friend group to like go to a jacuzzi. I think we like it's actually like really funny now when we go to.
No, it's cool, Kayla. I think it's because you're living a certain lifestyle and you wouldn't mess with it. It's the same thing with me. Like I don't go out past 9, and our High Rocks is at 9 p.m. and I'm literally out here like I might just let my team down because I like my sleep. I'm just kidding. I won't.
You gotta find a balance, but I mean, like what you guys are doing is amazing. We're super blessed now that everyone in our group is a health and wellness advocate, and that honestly, to me, someone who is first starting out in their health journey, that is the biggest. I don't care if it's health, business, on like whatever it is. The biggest life hack for me was getting around people who are smarter than me, where I wanted to be, doing things I wanted to do, because it's really hard to make a shift when your circle is just not there. And I really commend people who are like the first person in their family to even care about their health from a holistic point of view, and like really dive into like what you guys are doing, or just making a simple change from like the oil, like you said, or like whatever it is. It just really takes that one person to really influence everybody else. But yeah, if you don't know where to start, just get around a group that is doing it, because you'll just get there way faster. And that's what happened with us. And now it's like all of our friends are entrepreneurs, all of our friends are into health. And I think there was maybe like one last person in the group that like wasn't, and we were like, oh, how long are they gonna like make it? Like they gotta make the shift, because they're just like sticking out now. But yeah, it's cool. There's a lot of things. Water's a big component. What you guys are doing, longevity matters. I think people don't think about the fact that living a long time is great, but for what capacity? I don't want to say I live till I'm 90 and I'm hurting. That's not fun. I don't.
You're probably gonna hit the longevity curve. The velocity curve is about to hit, Kayla, with the power of AI and technology. Give it like 5-10 more years, and I think we'll all live to 120 easy.
Yeah, all the way. There's just so many ththings coming out. Like kids these days, they don't even know. You know, like
They don't even
my
know.
7-year-old is like, vegan donuts and kombucha, and I'm like, wow, 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 wow. Like, yeah.
Dude, I wish I was drinking kombucha. Yeah, no, it's cool. Well, we'll wrap it up here, Kayla. Just as we have another guest coming on, I just want to make sure you're also good. Macro perspective peeps, you hear it. Be an advocate for your health. Start where you're at. Get with the right people. And Kayla, thanks so much for being on the macro
Thank
perspective.
you both so
Macropod
much.
peeps, we
Thank
are
you.
out.
Bye, you guys. Thank you.